our residents are big champions, and that's not just about recruiting people to come and stay overnight and go to our festivals and events, but just in general of what we post on social media, how we present the community, what stories do we share, what elements of the city do we say, hey, we want to share this with our friends, our network, and we're gonna be champions and say this is why we love it. And so I think you're right. We definitely see more of that sort of self promotion from our residents over the last few years. We think that the momentum that we're building certainly will help continue to carry that, and certainly a part of the plan with this new brand is that everyone buys in.
Thanks for tuning in here. Thanks for listening. If this is your first time, welcome. Let me give you a little bit of breakdown about Over a Pint. This is a show dedicated to marketing. We bring in experts. We talk about the marketing space, how to be better in it, what their experiences have been to date, things that they wish they have done. We just kind of dissect the whole marketing industry, and really kind of get underneath the hood to find out what's going on. Today we have Joshua Albrecht. Joshua is the VP of Marketing and Communications over at Visit Milwaukee. Pumped to have him here. Kurt and I love the travel space, love the destination industry and marketing, and Joshua is freaking deep into the space. Joshua, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, happy to be here. Can't wait to share some stories with you.
Yeah, that'll be good. Joining me, as always, my main man, Mr. Kurt Lingle. Kurt is VP over at Celtic Advertising, a kick-ass agency in Milwaukee's 3rd Ward. I'm Pat McGovern, Director of New Business Development at Acedia in Milwaukee's 5th Ward. We're about 4 or 5 blocks away from one another. Mm-hmm. Kurt, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good today, Pat. I'm like you. I am happy to see some sun. So that's bringing a smile to my face. So Joshua, you are the beneficiary of my big smile today, because it's been kind of upside down lately with the weather, but I'm in a good spirit today, man. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Let's get into it, guys. Everybody knows the routine here. It's Over a Pint for a reason. We're talking about local breweries. Josh, we're going to start with you because you're the guest. All right. What do you got?
Yeah, hey, I'm old school. I'm going super old school for you for local breweries, and I'm gonna guess most of your guests come on here and they've got their favorite microbrewery or bar or something, right? They're gonna call it Black Husky. They're gonna maybe do an Explorium. They're gonna find these local breweries. Guess what? I'm going with the behemoth. I am a Miller High Life man. I'm going old school brewery, dial it way back. One of the oldest in the country, right? Number 3, I think, oldest brewery in the entire country. It's not a microbrew. It is a mega brew. But I feel like Miller High Life is a micro. People, it's got to hold its own still in that space because so few people acknowledge it as their go-to beer, because a lot of times people want to, they want to seem a little more out there, or a little more knowledgeable of their palate with brews. But I tell you, there's nothing better than a nice cold Miller High Life on a hot summer Milwaukee day.
Awesome. Chad Dern is going to love you too. Mr.
Hey,
Lingo.
talk about marketing and branding. Hey, marketing and branding, Miller High Life has it down. So
right on, brother. Right on. Mr. Lingo.
All I'm going to say, Pat, before we get to my Black Husky, that I'm actually
yeah, right.
That is Joshua. That was a nice response. I think this is the first in Over a Pint where we got a taste of what guest is having, but we got a little marketing build up around that. Pat, that was a first. Wow. All right. Good one. We love that brand. Obviously, it's a big fixture here in Milwaukee and has been for a long time. All right, I'm doing a few things here. First of all, I just got to plug an old friend. On my hat, you can't see. It's Soaring Ridge Brewery out of Roanoke, Virginia. Joshua, about a year ago, we had the director of marketing from Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge on the show. And I've been to Roanoke. I've gotten to know them. I'm plugging this local brewery, which is now, I think it's something else. I think it's Twisted Track Brew Pub, whatever. Great brewery. But you know what? It's Visit Milwaukee. So this is about the Brew City. I am going with the brew here. And Pat, Joshua, I'm bringing some Mobcraft to the table.
Oh, yeah.
I've got their batshit crazy. I'm going to have one of these later on when the day gets a little closer to, what time is it now? Are we at like 12:15?
Yeah.
2 hours from now,
open.
I'll be popping.
Yeah.
2 hours from now, I'll be popping this thing open. We had Henry Schwartz, actually, the founder of Mobcraft, on our show a few months back. He was fantastic. I'm going to have one of these. So Joshua, welcome to Over a Pint. It's great to have you.
Glad to be here.
Guys, I'm enjoying and want to promote Wisconsin Brewing, their Yankee IPA, which is a fine beer. So that's what I'm going to be promoting today. Cool. We got that under our belts. Let's focus on you, Josh. Do this. Start us off here, and let's get the super tanker moving. Give us some background about you, and touch upon what you're doing now, as well as background in the destination space, because it's really compelling. So the mic is yours, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, my tale starts as an old school newspaper journalist. That's where I began my career, was in newspapers. Started that when I went to Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois. That's where I went and did my undergrad work. And, I started in the newspapers, worked for the student newspaper, got bit by the journalism bug, eventually have done everything in newspapers except for actually run a press. So I've done everything else. I've sold the ads, I've written copy, I've taken photography, I've designed pages, the whole thing. And really that's where my sort of love of marketing actually began, was in newspapers. I mean, while I started on the editorial side, I wanted to grow my knowledge. My goal at that time was to be a publisher, and to be a publisher in a newspaper, you had to have advertising background, because the advertising department is where all the money was made. So I started to have to dive into where the money was made, and that's really where the marketing side of me really came about. And then working with all the local chamber of commerce, the economic development corporations, that was something we covered a ton when I was working for the newspapers early in my career. And I ran 2 weekly newspapers in DeKalb County in Illinois.
Wow.
The Midweek and Valley Free Press. We had a couple of monthly publications, a business one and an entertainment one. And the more I started to grow in that space, the more the space started to change and evolve into, the web and online, and sort of what we're seeing now with AI and Chat GPT sort of disrupting the space. Right. When I was in newspapers at the turn of the century, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, that was a space fully being disrupted by websites and the internet, and the whole model was changing. As that changed, I started to gravitate more to what drew me to journalism to begin with, which was that community outreach and community development, and being someone in the community who had a voice and had a way to influence how the community that I lived and worked in could be shaped. And doing it not from sort of the governmental perspective, but from that sort of grassroots, community advocate perspective. And that's what led me into the tourism space when I took a job with Dixon Main Street, and the Main Street program is very much a tourism and economic development tool in small towns all across the world, actually, very, very prevalent in the United States. They focus on downtown redevelopment, revitalization. So it's layered in marketing, in event production, and also in historical preservation. So you learned a lot about facade improvement and transom windows and all kinds of fun stuff that come with downtown revitalization. But still, that love of marketing was really what propelled me into that space of that sort of, how can I position the downtown of Dixon and tell the story of downtown Dixon to get people to come to it and to embrace it and be a part of it and celebrate there. So that's when I really first got into the tourism, the very specific tourism and economic development space, because I feel all tourism is economic development. So it's all trying to build up and better position the community so that all the businesses and then the residents can all benefit from that. So that began around 2007 for me. and have been in that space ever since. And that then took me from Dixon to Rockford, Illinois, where I worked for the Convention and Visitors Bureau there. I was then recruited to go to Michigan. Worked at Saugatuck Douglas, Michigan.
Yep.
A small resort town, very similar to Lake Geneva or Galena, Illinois.
Yep.
Did that for a little while, but I missed the larger city feel, because that was a very small town, about 2,000 people.
Yeah.
When there wasn't tourists there, so we missed the bigger city. Was recruited to go to Peoria, Illinois, where I was the chief marketing officer for the Convention and Visitors Bureau there, and then was blessed and lucky enough to get the call from the Milwaukee Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Peggy Williams-Smith, the CEO there, recruited me to come to Milwaukee. And as a lifelong visitor to Milwaukee, to the city, having grown up and lived in Northern Illinois and Michigan and Central Illinois, Milwaukee was always a destination of choice for me and my family. I mean, we would come to Brewers games, Bucks games, go to the museums, go to the lakefront, go to all the great breweries. It's just something we did for our vacations, our weekend getaways and things like that throughout my entire life. So when I got the call to represent Milwaukee as the vice president of marketing and communications for Visit Milwaukee, I jumped at it. It was an absolute no-brainer, and it was something that extremely excited me because I was already passionate about it. I didn't have to become passionate. I was already a passionate enthusiast of the city.
Awesome. Thanks for that recap, Josh. Let's focus now a little bit more about you and what you do currently. So we talked about you're the VP of Marketing Comms for Visit Milwaukee. Talk to us just a little bit about what that's like. I mean, what's a typical day in your world, right? To just frame this up for people, because again, marketing to destination seems so different than a lot of the other quote traditional marketing positions, right? Give us a sense as to like how you break down what goes on in a typical day in your world.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you saying it's different than traditional marketing. I actually say that to people all the time when they ask the question, and that usually it's prefaced by, well, who, like if I'm talking to a vendor or something, they'll say, who's your target audience? And I always say, look, unfortunately, it's literally everybody. Like if I start there, and I can easily say I'm going to break it down to an old school term of soccer moms or something, right? Like the leader of the family who's going to make the decisions, decide where they're going to go on their vacation. But touring tourism marketing, especially for Milwaukee, is so varied because we partner heavily with the Wisconsin Center District to sell our convention center to meeting planners, sports directors, tournament planners, leisure event planners, whether it's a Comic-Con or an anime festival or what have you. So there's the whole space of trying to sell the convention center in the city as a meetings and conventions destination. And we've got that coming up with the Republican National Convention in 2024.
Yep.
These large scale events. But then there's also the general leisure traveler who we're selling to, who is somebody who like me, how I grew up, which was, hey, we're going to come for 2, maybe 3 nights. We might check out a concert at the Riverside Theater. We might be coming to a Brewers game. We might be going to the zoo. Yep. How do I sell the city then to a leisure traveler, which, by the way, it's not just families, right? We know based on some of the data that we collect, because we do a lot of data collection through a variety of different software companies, through cell phone and credit card tracking and data sources. We know that it's just shy of 20% of our travelers have children in their home. Now, I'm not saying that 20% of our travelers have children with them when they travel, but we do know that based on census data and the data we receive, 20% have children in their home under the age of 18. So it's definitely not just families coming here. We have a lot of bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. I got to market to them. I got to market to somebody who's coming, as a couple's vacation, and that's not just a young couple. That's a middle-aged couple. That's a senior citizen couple. That's couples of all ages and of all kinds too. We have to make sure that we're marketing to LGBTQ travelers, and we have to make sure we're marketing to a full array of ethnic backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds. So there is an idealized traveler, and that's always one with money, because we want to generate money, right? We want to generate money for our hotels, our restaurant partners, our attractions. So if I'm going to target my marketing on a daily basis, we tend to go a little bit of a higher household income, solely because we want a longer stay and we want more spending activity when they're here. But we also have plenty of budget-friendly options for travelers, so we have to find ways to market towards a budget-friendly shopper as well. So I wish that I could say, hey, I'm selling toothpaste and I'm just selling it to women ages 30 to 55 with children in their home.
Yep.
But we can't get that specific. So it's a pretty hard go to really market to everyone. So we have to find those niches in between the meetings, conventions, the leisure traveler. We break our leisure traveler into 3 core demographics right now, which is millennials, multicultural millennials, active seniors, and families. And then so family would be that sort of traditional soccer mom, if you will. And those are our 3 that we sort of really focus on. And then we focus on a 6-hour drive time from Milwaukee. But we're lucky enough to have many large DMAs in our 6-hour drive time, particularly trying to influence Chicago, of course, being so close to Milwaukee. That's always our number. That's always our number one in all of our data as the visitor origin market. So Chicago is always number 1. Number 2 then is broken up between all of the other DMAs in the state of Wisconsin. So we're talking Green Bay, Madison, La Crosse, the big DMAs you would expect. Would drive a lot of traffic. And then from 3 to 10, it changes every month. And we see a lot of it changing, honestly, by where we're putting our marketing. So it might be Minneapolis once a month. It might be Indianapolis. It might be St. Louis. It might be Des Moines, Rockford, Illinois, or the Quad Cities there on the Illinois Iowa border. So we try to sort of fluctuate between those and to drive more traffic. And then sometimes we really try to partner strongly with Travel Wisconsin, which is the state DMO, marketing organization. And we try to piggyback off the locations that they're going after and they're trying to generate travel from. So we know there's a lot of travelers from Minnesota and from Minneapolis based on their data that they share with us. And so we've put a concerted effort into Minnesota and Minneapolis over the last 18 months since I started in Milwaukee, because there's a large amount of travelers from Minnesota that come to Wisconsin. Now, the question is, can we get them to drive all the way across the state to Milwaukee,
right,
and experience our region? So that's our focus right now on a day-to-day basis. Sell that Wisconsin center. Let's get some traffic from a 6-hour drive time with an emphasis on Minnesota right now. And then let's get those 3 different target markets that we're after: the seniors, multicultural millennials, and families.
If Josh, if I could ask a question, and obviously as you're going through the geos and the targets, it's hyper targeted. There is a lot going on here, which is very common in your industry, which makes it very, very challenging. Because like you said, it's not as easy just to say this is our target audience or whatever it might be. It is hyper broken out. But what I want to hear is, best you can, what's the pitch? Because obviously it's like, if you're going after, let's just lump them into one. And I know we can't do that, but it's like, you've got the consumer, you've got the B2B. What is the pitch? Because what I've seen, as we talk to brands, it's like, at the end of the day, you got to know your lane. You got to know who you are. You got to be authentic. And it's interesting. I've seen with different cities, and I think Milwaukee years ago was the same way. It's like, sometimes people want to shy away from who they are, but all of a sudden you realize, like, you know what we are and who we are is pretty damn cool. There's a lot of people that want that. Why are we running from that? So, and I think Milwaukee's done a great job. We're embracing that, by the way. So what's the pitch though? What is the pitch? If you had to break it down, what's the promise of the brand? If you're going after, Josh and his family in Illinois or whomever, it's like, just break down the pitch as simple as you can.
Yeah, a fantastic question, and one that I'm kind of gonna dance around a little bit. It's gonna be a little longer answer than you like. Part of that is because we are actually As of last year, about midway through the year, we started a full brand refresh. So we are looking at what that pitch is, what our logo system is, what everything, just a whole brand overhaul. We started that with some both Milwaukee-based surveys and some external surveys, and then some very specific stakeholder, our partnership surveys. The pitch right now certainly is a lot of things that have been used over the years. So, great place and a great lake is a calling card. City of festivals is definitely still a calling card for us. We really sell the festivals and the celebratory nature of our community. Obviously, beer, brats, and cheese, no matter how much people sometimes, like you said, want to shy away from it, it's a selling point. People outside of Milwaukee and Wisconsin love beer, brats, and cheese. So we definitely tell that story. In fact, a stat for you from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, they did a study last year where 43% of people in a perception study of the entire United States, 43% associate Wisconsin with cheese. So if you said, what do you think about when you think of Wisconsin? 43% said cheese. Now, the problem from that survey that we found out was the number 2 response was nothing. So people would say,
really?
What do you think about when you think of when we say Wisconsin? The number 2 response on that survey was nothing. They didn't think of anything. They couldn't think of a thing to identify Wisconsin. So cheese was 43%, nothing was number 2, and then it just sort of broke down from there. Cold was on the list, which is always hilarious, especially in the summer, because we certainly aren't cold in the summer. So part of it is we feel like externally we do need some work still, and we haven't maybe embraced as strongly who we are in the past as we should have, and it has allowed this sort of nothing response from some people out there who just don't have an association yet. And so we really want to build a strong brand over the next year, particularly going into 2024 because of a high-profile event like the Republican National Convention coming. We want to make sure that when we have 10,000 journalists in town for that event in the summer of 2024, that we have a strong message and brand that can resonate throughout the world. Now, there's a lot of elements that we have. Like I said, beer, brats, a great lake, beautiful river, growing downtown, world champion Bucks, right? And we can still say world champion even though they lost this year. It's been a few years. Great baseball, great zoo, all the amenities, right? We have
right.
Top 100 companies and corporation. I mean, we've got it all. But I don't know. One thing I've learned, not being a lifelong resident of Milwaukee and coming in new and talking to a lot of residents and stakeholders, is one of the top responses we got from our surveys and these conversations was a lot of people said, we haven't done a good enough job of just pounding our own chest. We're not good enough. We're too humble. We're too Midwest nice. We're too just sort of, we know who we are, so why should we boast? Well, we need to boast. And that's part of what Visit Milwaukee's job is to be the big boosters. We're the ones with the megaphone, and we need to start really yelling it out loud all across the nation and the world about how amazing we are. So the goal will be hopefully in early 2024 to announce that new brand, that new slogan, that new everything that can really catapult us into a next level of Milwaukee.
Will part of that strategy, Josh, be to, I think that's great answer. Will part of that strategy be to, when you say educate, get on the soapbox, educate people like me? Because I'm from Milwaukee. I moved away. I lived in other cities, but I came back, and it's like, it's like there is a sense of pride. It's like maybe years ago when people asked, like, hey, where are you from? Milwaukee. Like, oh, Milwaukee. That's, Now it seems like it's re-energized. I'll talk to clients who are out of state, or when I travel, I'm one of the biggest ambassadors. I'm like, yeah, Milwaukee, and people are kind of, I'll give them the elevator speech, and it starts to resonate. So I was just kind of curious, will there be a strategy? Is that part of it to kind of say, hey, listen, public, it's like, be proud of who you are. Here are the selling points. Be proud, be loud.
Oh yeah.
Curious.
100%. Yes. Yeah. The answer is definitely yes. I mean, the management of reputation, management of community pride is such a vital part to what any tourism bureau does. I mean, we're the local cheerleaders rallying the troops, giving them the tools, highlighting things for them to champion. We know travelers love to travel to where they know people already. There's a comfort in travel when you go to visit a family member or a lifelong friend who says, "Hey, come see my city. Come spend a couple days with me. Come find out what's going on, what's with the festivals or summer. Come to Summerfest, right? Come." Yeah, how many times have you've probably said that, having lived in Milwaukee, said, "Hey, you should come up during Summerfest. Come on over during Summerfest and we can go there together and we can have a great time of it." So our residents are big champions, and that's not just about recruiting people to come and stay overnight and go to our festivals and events, but just in general of what we post on social media, how we present the community, what stories do we share, what elements of the city do we say, "Hey, we want to share this with our friends, our network, and we're going to be champions and say this is why we love it." And so I think you're right. We definitely see more of that sort of self-promotion from our residents over the last few years. We think that the momentum that we're building certainly will help continue to carry that. And certainly a part of the plan with this new brand is that everyone buys in and they find a way that they can make it their own and celebrate it in their way, because we want people to organically use it and embrace it and celebrate it. We don't necessarily want to say, "Here's exactly how you use these tools." We just say, "Here's the tools, and now you find out the secret ways to get it out to the world in a really well and profound and intentional way."
We're spending some time talking about future things. You're talking about 2024 and the new brand that's coming out. Josh, let's spend a few minutes on that. And what's kind of the state of the state? Are we done? And is your organization, are we done with COVID? Is that party over? And, do we still have any residual hangover, or, kind of explain where things are at?
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of that.
I think luckily it feels like the world has shaken it off and has understood how to handle. We always said the new normal or whatever. Feels like things have kind of gone back to normal, certainly within the attraction space, concerts. I was just at a concert the other night at the Riverside and sellout crowd, and I didn't see a single person with a mask on.
Yeah.
So we've gone past that. Enough people have been vaccinated. I think certainly our healthcare providers have done a great job of helping to manage and get us out of that. So travel is definitely coming back now. And COVID really isn't a concern in any of the travel space. When we go to conventions and talk with our peers around the country, no one is concerned at all with COVID anymore impacting travel. People know how to handle it now. They know how to handle themselves and self-regulate themselves if they're sick and stay home.
Yeah.
And certainly we don't anticipate it affecting anything, any attendance numbers or any travel numbers. Now, the thing that can affect travel that we're seeing with our data partners across the country is the economy, and the economy always affects the state of travel. So, with continue, with these, the rumors or grumblings of bank failures never helps. High gas prices never help. Things like that, those things that affect the economy truly do affect tourism, because when people start to get a little worried for their pocketbook, they start to pull back. Now, what helps us is the first thing that typically pulls back is air travel. And all the data shows that, while we have an amazing airport with our Milwaukee airport, truly one of our calling cards. That's a beautiful airport that makes it super easy. We also benefit from that drive time of all those DMAs we talked about earlier.
For sure.
So what we're hearing from people like AAA is that drive market's still going to stay solid at least through 2023. We think it's going to stay solid in perpetuity. We will always draw the drivers, and knowing Chicago is number one, the state of Wisconsin is number two for travelers to Milwaukee. We're always going to have that destination driver, that one who's driving to the destination to stay the night. So I think we're past COVID. We'll see how the economy shakes out here, and certainly if that stays where it's at or gets stronger, we'll see that boost. As the economy grows, tourism will grow.
You talked about two different audiences, and you talked about the kind of the individual traveler, an individual, I'm including families in that, and then you talked about conventions, right?
Yep.
Just spend a little bit of time talking about conventions. How do you market yourself to conventions?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We definitely, the beautiful thing about convention marketing is that it's also part of our leisure travel marketing, in that the conventioneer wants to know what their attendees are going to do when they're not at the at the Wisconsin Center, right? So they want to know, the first thing they always want to know is how big is your convention hall? Can I even host my thousands of people that I need to host? And with our Wisconsin Center expansion coming into effect in 2024, that's going to pour more people into that center than we've ever seen before. We're going to be able to host more shows because of the extra space. We're going to be able to load in, load out faster. So the Wisconsin Center is primed for an increase in activity, an increase in more attendees and more conferences. So how we market that is we say, here's how big our center is, brand new, expansion, it's beautiful, state of the art. What a lot of the conventioneers want to hear then too is how focused is the property, the center, and the destination on things like sustainability, environmental friendliness, how engaged is the community on the trends of the current culture. And so being able to show Milwaukee is progressive, Milwaukee is a growing city with lots to offer, that we have amenities of any other major city that we are competing against, because we're competing against every other major city in the United States. And guess what? Not every major city, every city who's got some type of building that can house thousands of people. And I think people forget that we are literally in competition with every city out there, every single city for a traveler. And for the leisure traveler, it's every city in the world, because I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast right now knows somebody who's traveled to Europe for their summer vacation instead of somewhere in the United States. They've traveled maybe to Asia or Australia. We're competing for those same people who are traveling anywhere in the world. And every traveler can, because of the internet, can pick any destination now. They're familiar with everything, and they can book it within seconds on their phone, on their couch. The competition is so fierce. I don't think a lot of cities understand that, is how fierce that competition is. That literally you have in the sports tournament space, where we host sports tournaments in our convention center, like there are cities who've built up, $100 million sports complexes to recruit sports tournaments. And these are youth sports tournaments, ages 5 to 18, that are driving their economy so strong. And these are smaller cities. I'll give you an example. Rantoul, Illinois, and Southern Illinois near Champaign, Illinois. Yeah. I personally was there for a soccer tournament with my son on his traveling soccer team. And that's a town of, I think it was maybe 5,000 people. Wow. But it had a state-of-the-art sports complex that is in competition with Milwaukee for sports tournaments, right? Wow. And so big and small, there's that competition. So our marketing has to be targeted through industry magazines and industry publications, getting earned media and paid media through those routes. And then there's also conventions that we go to meet directly with those rights holders. So those rights holders come from all over the world. We'll meet them at convention. There's a large one called IMEX that's in Las Vegas every fall. Connect is another big one that is hosted every year, changes places. And actually, we're lucky enough to be able to host Connect in 2024. And that's a large rights holder event where all these rights holders, from tournaments to meeting planners, all come in and meet with destinations learn why they're destination of choice, what makes them stand out. Luckily for us, we've really put an emphasis on the new convention center. We've got some great sports facilities outside of the convention center. But what really sells people a lot is our convenience. Milwaukee has so much convenience that a larger city doesn't. I mean, you can get from the airport to downtown in maybe less than 10 minutes if the traffic's right. You can be at the convention center and be at the lake in less than 10 minutes. You can walk. It's super walkable. It's pedestrian friendly. Not every destination has those amenities, and we have that sort of perfect blend of large city with small town hospitality that really hits home for a lot of the companies that we market to in the convention space. And they like that sort of friendly attitude that Milwaukeeans have, where we hear all the time, oh, we just walked into this, we just hopped into a bar and we became friends with everybody, right? Like Midwest nice goes a long way, because Midwest nice is called that for a reason. It's not everywhere. And that nice factor, it goes a long, long way for people.
What's interesting is it gets back to our conversation about the target markets and what appeals. You talk about the consumer side. And again, I'm going to lump everyone into that bucket. While I would love to think that someone from Seattle or from Boston would just randomly want to come to Milwaukee for a vacation, I'm sure it happens, because we are a great city. And I'm like you. I'm going to toot our horn, Josh. I'm doing my part. Probably a little more far and few. that circle is what you described earlier. It's kind of, we're looking regional where people are going to drive in. But now when you flip it and you start talking the business side, the convention side, you are spot on. I mean, look at the RNC. You are pulling in ginormous conventions that literally a convention like that or others could drop out of the sky in any other city. Pick it. But you're pitching against all these other cities. So depending who that audience is, all of a sudden you go from a regional sell to like, our net is national. It can be anybody depending on what their hot buttons are. Oh,
and it goes a long way. I think people underestimate sometimes, because you don't see what's going on in the convention center. It's just this nice building in the center of our city. So if you're just a resident, you might not.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe you've never even gone in it. Maybe you've never, maybe you didn't get a chance to go in it as for one of the consumer shows. So you don't really understand it. But yeah, those shows that we bring in will bring people from all over the world. Next year, Republican National Convention will literally bring people from the entire world to Milwaukee. Yeah. And what we find is once you've come, right, your propensity to come back and bring friends with you, it grows exponentially, right? So we find all the time, like people, the first impression we get when we host these familiarization tours of journalists or conventioneers, they always say, I had no idea. I can't wait to come back. I had no idea. I can't wait to come back. And so the more we can get that message out sooner, we can get people to come for these conventions, come back as repeat visitors. They'll tell their friends, and it grows and grows and grows. They become evangelists for us, right? Those brand enthusiasts who take the message out for us just because they came for a work convention. And it can go a long way. And those impressions you make when you're coming to a convention can shape you for a long, long time and make you want to come back, make you want to tell your friends to come back, and those revisits. And we get people from all over the world for these conventions. So it's vital to our Milwaukee economy. It's vital to any city's economy to have a robust tourism space, because not only is it going to get return visitors and tourism, but the destination management cycle that is used by a lot of DMOs reminds people that moving somewhere starts with a visit. Very rarely does someone move and become a resident of a new city sight unseen. They're not going to be like, and tomorrow I'm going to Milwaukee, and they just show up, right? It usually started because they visited Milwaukee, whether it was a convention, seeing friends or family, going to college. There was a visit there. There was something that brought them to begin with. And then they said, I can imagine myself here. I had a great time. The people were great. I love these James Beard Award-winning restaurants that are affordable. I love, being able to get to the lakefront, but also get to a Brewers game in the span of 10 minutes between the two. The traffic is so easy to get around in the traffic. I'm not driving in a big city. I'm driving in a regular old American city. So those are the things that really drive resident recruitment as well as visitor recruitment. And so that's the next level of tourism that we don't always see, is how it impacts new resident and resident growth, which is something that, Mayor Johnson in the city of Milwaukee, it's a key goal of his, is to grow the population to 1 million. And certainly you won't get 1 million people moving, or 1 million population, more, hundreds of thousands of people moving to Milwaukee without visits, without them being tourists first. And so that's a big proponent of what we do.
Josh, what seems so challenging for you and the team at any kind of DMO level working on this is the fact that so much of what you have to market is out of your control, right? For example, the industry, the bar situation, the nightlife. Visit Milwaukee doesn't develop that stuff. You market that stuff. Yeah. But you don't develop it, right? So many things like road construction, you have no, right? It's like things that naturally go on. What's the role between your organization and other organizations throughout the city? How do you guys work together to say, and you talked about this, we want our convention center to be more green, to reflect more of these things. How do you go about showcasing some of those things, or even talking to small businesses and people throughout the city about hey, listen, this is what our research is saying. This is what visitors want. You can do what you want with it, but we're trying to educate you. Can you give us some insight into that? Oh
man, that's a fantastic question, because advocacy and public relations is such a key component for a tourism bureau. And in a way, we're always trying to market and influence our local leaders in ways to benefit the tourism economy and the hospitality industry as a whole. So you're so right when you say we can't control if a new hotel is going to be built. Like we're not going to build a hotel. We're not developers,
Right.
but we can certainly, position ourselves strategically with the economic development entities in the city, give them the information that you're saying. Here's the data. We're seeing growth in our occupancy or in our average daily rate for hotel rooms, and this is where we think there is openings for additional hotel space, or this is why we need this new hotel, because we've got the Wisconsin Center expansion, and if we had an additional hotel, we could fill it X amount of more days. We can give them that data, and we can say, hey, it's a sound decision to do further development because we have the customers, and
Right.
this is when they're coming, and we even know, the ebbs and flows and the cycle based on the data we have of when is it busy and when's the slow time and when's the need time and all those things. So sharing the data and knowledge that we have, the information we have. We say all the time, a visitors bureau is purveyors of information. We that's our product. Our product is information, and sometimes that information is just, here's the bar you should go to, or here's the attraction you should go to. Sometimes it's the data of consumer spending and consumer habits that we can share with developers to help influence what they want and why they want it, and then we can help advocate for future growth or smart growth in different ways, and saying, hey, maybe sometimes the data is showing that we don't need X, but we do need Y. And so we definitely work closely with City Hall, with county officials, the other economic development entities throughout the city to share that information, to be at the table and just tell them what we're seeing and hearing, and also to stay on top of the trends of what other cities are doing. So many other cities are investing so heavily in the tourism space and in attractions, whatever that might be, that there is in a way a keeping up with the Joneses, the old mentality of, hey, if they're building a giant Ferris wheel, do we need to consider a giant Ferris wheel? Like what are those things you got to figure out that fits? Yeah. But as Kurt was saying earlier, how do you do it authentically to Milwaukee and still keep the character of Milwaukee and who we are and why we are, and make sure that we're staying true to that and not just trying to create a second something. There's nothing worse than when I hear someone say that in the tourism space. Oh, we should be like X. We should be like Nashville. No. We're Milwaukee. Yeah. There is no awesome we point. Should be like. We are Milwaukee. Now, other people can say they want to be like us. I'm fine with that. But our aspiration is to be the best Milwaukee that we can be, not to become something that we're not.
Awesome.
You know what? Great answer. And Pat, when you asked that question, it started to make me think a little bit about what Visit Milwaukee's role is with the outliers. And what I mean by that, Josh, is we're kind of talking about partnership. And it's one thing for, let's say, your organization to promote beverage, food, entertainment, but you're only as good as those around you. And I start to think about, the creativity that starts to happen, like, okay, what's going on in River West? How is that community feeding off of what you're doing? Because they're looking at Visit Milwaukee, taking the lead. And if I'm River West, all of a sudden I say, you know what? That's infectious. What are we doing now to kind of be entrepreneurial in our thinking, to kind of feed off of what they're doing, pull people in, whether it's like, promoting our breweries, sort of a bus crawl, or whatever it might be. Like, I love to see the thinking then start to spread out. And I'm sure that's what you're hoping too. It's like, we've got a lot to offer here, and we can tout high level, but we need all of the outliers. Come on, folks, you got to do your part too. I mean, how involved, are there times when organizations are coming to you, say, hey, listen, Visit Milwaukee, can you help? What ideas do you have? You kind of know where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We are a partnership organization. We've got well over 800 partners right now. And that's all kinds of businesses. And that also includes, neighborhood associations, business development improvement districts. So our partners are throughout the city, and they definitely embrace what is happening. And they say, okay, well, if people are coming, for instance, if people are coming to the Deer District or in the downtown for a Bucks game, if we can convince them and show them how easy it is then to go from the Deer District to Bronzeville, from Bronzeville to River West, from River West down to Walker's Point, it's it's so easy. But what the traveler doesn't know, being especially a first-time traveler, is how easy it is. And we need to collectively remind people, like, we can shout it. It's our job to be the cheerleaders, but one person shouting isn't ever going to be enough, right? And so that's where, going back to even what we were talking earlier, how can we get everyone on board for the brand and on board for the message that we all are sharing it and amplifying in our own ways, in our own unique visitors, or our own unique avenues of persuasion, whether that might be a blog or a social or whatever it might be, right? Everybody has to be championing how they can move people through the city. And moving people through the city really is something we're kind of focused on. We've been talking internally. We internally call it. I tell my team all the time. I call it multi-level visitation. That first visitor is level one, and they want comfort. And that's why chain restaurants are so popular across the entire world, because you want that comfort as a first-time visitor somewhere. Part of you wants to get pulled to that, fun, eclectic coffee shop that might be a few neighborhoods over, but it's safe to go to Starbucks, right? You've already done that. You know how to order, you know how to do it, you know what you're going to get yourself into. Yeah. Our job is to tell the stories about those neighborhoods, about those mom and pop shops, those things that aren't in the core or maybe aren't a franchise. We need to tell the stories of 191 neighborhoods. So when the visitor comes, they're not on level one. They're not just coming to the base level of what our destination has to offer. They're graduating to level 2 or level 3, where now they're comfortable. They say, oh, what's this? We ate at Capitol Grill downtown last time we're here, but we heard there's this cool food truck park called Zocalo in Walker's Point in the South. What's that about? Okay, now here, you've been here. Let's make you comfortable going there now. Let's show you how it's done before you even get there. If I can show you a video of what the park looks like and how you order and what you're going to experience before you even get there, now you're comfortable. And now you feel like you already know somebody there, maybe even because you've seen the owner on the video or whatever. And I kind of already know this place. And now that comfort level starts to seep in. And that's really what we try to do, is create that comfort level of exploration, so people graduate from that novice traveler unsure of themselves and gravitating to the familiar, to the expert traveler, or the resident. We call them the resident traveler, right? Someone who feels like a resident. They've been here so often, and now they're saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to at random and get myself a pink squirrel because I know exactly what neighborhood that's in, and it doesn't really look like a bar, but I already knew that going into it, right? Because if you show up without knowing that, you might be like, "Is this a bar? Where's the entrance?" Right? So we have to show them how to do it and how to experience the city before they even get here.
Gosh, it seems like a channel that could do a lot of the heavy lifting on that is the website, right? Definitely. Talk to us a little bit about how you view the website. What's its role in your marketing mix, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question, because our website, we're actually going through a redesign right now. This summer of summer 23, we'll be launching a whole brand new website for people. And the website is really where everything that we do points to it. So every ad we run, every billboard, every out of home, in home, direct mailer, whatever it might be, all points for people to go to the website to learn more. And so that website experience, we're putting a heavy investment in content creation, which is so common in marketing right now, but particularly destination marketing, content creation of videos. We've got our podcast, Josh and Around Milwaukee, where I'm going around and exploring the city now with another Josh Albrecht, 2 Josh Albrechts in one city, having some fun, which is great. But we also, we have got our television show, Good Things Brewing, which lives on our website and is being broadcast throughout the country. That points back to our website. We've got our blog. Believe it or not, Visit Milwaukee didn't have a blog a year ago when I started. And we were like, well, let's get to 2005 and start a blog. And we did that. So content, always to that website. But the website we see, now I'm going to do a callback for you to the newspapers, my newspaper start. And this is why I think journalists and old school journalists and newspaper and magazine writers are perfect for destination marketing, is that as newspapers have gone out of business or evolved into different forms of disseminating information, mm-hmm. I really feel that the DMO is poised to be that new community newspaper. We specialize in a calendar of events. We have the calendar of events. What did you used to go to for the local newspaper, the weekly or the local newspaper? Hey, what's happening tonight? What's showing at the movie theater, right? What's playing at the theater downtown? What's going on? What's the schedule? So you go to our website now to get that information. Hey, who are the Bucks playing? Who are the Admirals playing? Who's got specials? Who's got the festival this weekend? Go to our website. We've got the calendar of events for you. Oh, and guess what? We've got a blog for you to tell you about how to experience that. And so really, we feel that the DMO website, our website, visitmilwaukee.org, is truly a community newspaper. It's a community information post that people can come, get information, get advice, go to our social channels, where we're leading a conversation on how to experience the city. And that's what our local newspapers used to do. Certainly, we don't report on things like, crime or general news of the day. We specialize in entertainment. But it's that community central point where people, residents and visitors, can go to get the information about what's going on and what to do.
That's really interesting, Josh. Thank you for sharing that with us. Josh, you say you have a lot of different segments that you're going after. You have, and you talked just a minute ago about just the content that's coming up throughout the month based off of things that are happening. How do you work with your team in terms of what stories are you covering? What's driving that? Are you fueling that, or are you reading off like, okay, Summerfest is going to be at this time, so we're going to need to have stories about X. This is where your journalistic background really seems to come in handy of developing that content calendar. But how does that happen? Yeah, give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, definitely. So our team, we definitely have a content meeting every week, and our goal definitely is to, create those old school story sheets of what's the lead story right now,
Yeah.
and it might be Summerfest, and certainly a lot of the times we try to think what's going to be of interest for a traveler, but we're kind of like a magazine more than a newspaper in some respects, in that we have to be a few months out for the traveler planning.
Right.
So, summer season, how are we doing things seasonally? How are we changing and pivoting with seasons, with festivals? So key holidays is always important.
So Josh, let me stop you for a second there. Are you literally sitting around the table and are people throwing out ideas like, hey, I think we should focus, this might be too early, but hey, let's focus on apple picking, right? And because there's a new, okay.
Yeah. Sitting around the table saying, "Hey, apple picking," and then we'll just do fun. What's a crazy idea? How like, for instance, we said we have some business partners. This is the most recent example, who are pet stores. So we have pet stores, and then we have a lot of dog parks in the area. And we were saying, how can we highlight pet stores for the traveler? Like, how do we make that an interesting, engaging content piece? Well, our content team, we have a amazing social media coordinator, Ina Lee is her name. We sat around and a few of the others, and they said, what if we do a couple of Instagram stories about Bender, the Admirals' mascot dog? So the hockey team's mascot is Bender the dog, is one of their mascots, and cute little puppy. And we said, what if we just let him choose his adventures throughout the city? And so we created an Instagram story of the dog choosing between two options, putting his paw on the option, and that's the store he went to, and that's the park he went to. And so we had this fun, engaging way of showing the city through the eyes of a dog, that allowed us to get recognition to allow those pet supply partners that we had. Whereas it definitely doesn't sell it the same way if we just have me go into the store to pick up pet supplies. It's a lot more fun to see the dog do it. So just trying to be fun and engaging and different. And so then we also use influencers to tell those stories. So we that's how we came up with the idea of using Bobby Portis as our hype man. We sat around the table, said, who should we use to help share their story of the city, how they experience the city? So we knew we wanted one of the sports team athletes, and we said, well, who's the most of the people? Like, there's a lot of, everybody knows Giannis, right? And everybody knows Christian Yelich, the big stars. We said, who's more of the people's person? And of course, everyone gravitates to Bobby. Everybody does the Bobby shout at the games. There's just something everyman about him that made him endearing, and so that he worked for us there. And
awesome.
And so that's just how we go about it. Just spitball around the table and see what sticks, and then you run with it.
Bobby's the kind of guy you can envision sitting on the bar stool right next to you, you were saying. I'll tell you what. with the, if I could, I just want to make sure I mention this. So the Josh and Around Milwaukee, the fact that you're on this podcast, and I'm excited to see what happens with the website moving forward. What I appreciate, what I'm seeing that you're infusing is I think what a lot of brands that are about the people forget, and that it's about the face. It is about the faces. So, granted, you're not the only face behind that Visit Milwaukee team, but I think it is important because you all are the ambassadors too. And it's like, if you're selling a brand like tourism, talk about a great way to start building rapport. And I just think it's so important. So I love seeing stuff like that because it starts to make everything much more relatable. So I think the whole Josh Around Milwaukee is cool, and I like what you're doing, some of the other things. So I think it's very smart and you're spot on, heading in the right direction for sure.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. We want the best influencers are ourselves. We know the
Absolutely.
city better than anybody else. We bring a lot of influencers from outside the city to come and do social posts or blogs or things for us. But the more we talked about it, we said, we know the city better than anybody else. We should be we're the influencers. We are the influencers in Milwaukee. And so let's get all of the fun partners in the city, whether it's, through our Good Things Brewing television show, and just letting people showcase their neighborhoods, whether it's Josh and Around, whether it's Bobby Portis, whether it's Grace Weber, whoever the other influencers we use. Certainly letting people tell their story of Milwaukee is really endearing and gets people excited to come.
Josh, it's been outstanding having you on here. I could easily talk to you, and I think Kurt would join me in another couple hours, but you've got a million things going on. Sir, take the mic. You've got the final word. How do people find out about you? What do you want to promote? You've got it. Go.
Yeah. So thanks again for having me on. It's been a pleasure to be on the show today, and certainly, definitely, we'll have to continue the conversation again in the future. For Visit Milwaukee, it's visitmilwaukee.org. We want people to go to the website and learn all about the city. Check out the television show Good Things Brewing. You can see the episodes. There's 4 episodes there on the website. You can see some really great content there of what to do and see in the city. You will definitely find something in the city. Whether you've been here, never been here before, or you've lived here your whole life, there's going to be something in one of those episodes where you're like, I had no idea that existed. I had no idea there was a Vietnamese noodle shop in Silver City that specializes in dishes that I want to eat, right? You're going to say that to yourself. So watch Good Things Brewing. It's a great show. And then, of course, I have to plug Josh and Around since it's my podcast. Definitely enjoy that and see it. But again, just check out our website, visitmilwaukee.org. There's a ton of content, ton of great things there to see. And we hope that everybody takes the opportunity to celebrate Milwaukee and invite their friends for a visit.
Josh, come back anytime. The mic's always open, man. You were awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you, Josh.